Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Youth Ministry and Mentorship 101. I am speaking with Sister Nicolette today, who is active in her area in nursing, tutoring, teaching, and she's also the author of this outstanding new book, How to Beat a Rigged School System: 13 Steps to 100. How you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I'm excited to learn from you today. So we'll just straight up ask the first question that I usually ask, which is if you could give a short bio about yourself and what led you to where you are now.
Sure. Again, as you say, my name is Nicolette Piaubert. I am currently a nurse practitioner. I live in Brooklyn. I go to Hebron SDA church. Um, I um, I have always loved God, and I was not a Seventh Day Adventist born, but my aunt introduced me to the faith, and ever since I got baptized in 2001, I've been all for the Seventh Day Adventist faith and am immersed in all the activities, youth ministry, children's ministry, Pathfinders, and Master Guide, and now currently Medical Corps Cadet. And in my course of, or my journey, I've found that there's a lot of issues with young people and education. And even myself growing up, I found it a little hard to kind of get to grips with what I'm learning in school, what I'm supposed to be learning, and immersing myself in my studies. And so as I became a nurse and saw the difficulties I had there, I started to try to understand why it is students have the difficulties that they do have. And that's when I really started to understand what learning is about and how one learns. And that's where the whole book stemmed from. But I'm all about education, all about teaching, love the youth, love the ministry. And I really thank you for having me on at this time.
Yeah, it's interesting to have you on. I'm excited to have you on because several reasons. One of you, I've always seen that you're active in teaching, especially in your field, in the nursing field, that you're a nurse practitioner. But uh, the other thing I want to point out is that you go to Hebron SDA, which is part of Northeastern Conference, which is also the home, if I'm not mistaken, of the Hebron Highlander Drum Corps. Is
That's
that correct?
right.
That's
Yes.
so you are a part of a church that is vibrant in youth ministry, a lot
Mhm.
of youth leaders. In fact,
Yeah.
some youth leaders from that church have actually been on this podcast before. So
Cool.
how does it how does it feel, or how does it like in that kind of an environment where there's a church where a lot of youth leaders are working together and doing amazing things?
It is an amazing feeling because um, as a young person, you want to be part of it all, and Hebron allows you to do that in so many different ways. The Pathfinder ministry is one of the most vibrant ministries that we do have, and we have so many leaders to enable it to be that way. Of course, it's a fight as in any other church. So don't get me wrong. Like, we have to fight our way through, and we, through committee and all of that. But we are just so happy that we have maintained it with the help of our youth leaders and also older folks who believe in us as young people. I am of the older youth, so I've seen the trajectory and the movement of our youth, and how sometimes we're slow, sometimes we're fast. So it's just a great thing to be part of that group. Having gone to Oshkosh and having won the whole drum corps, it's just great to feel a part of that and to be next to and with and be a part of the leadership and part of the youth. It's just a great feeling. It really is.
So you mentioned Oshkosh, and we actually crossed paths. I think I
Mhm.
was busy, and I think you were kind of busy at the same time. And that's
Mhm.
that's what happens at Oshkosh. So
Yeah.
we just said, "Hey, hey," and then passed each other.
Mhm.
But you are a master guide, correct?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. So so with that being said, can you tell us how you use your ability to be a great tutor and teacher in Master Guide and Pathfinder Ministry?
Sure. So I have a knack for young people, for teaching and guiding and showing them love, but also discipline. They all know me that I'm fun loving, but I'm very much a disciplinarian as well. So as much as I put the love into it, but I also put the discipline in it. So it was very easy with Master Guide because there's a level of discipline and leadership and guidance that you have to portray as a Master Guide. And so if they already know you to be that person, well, Nicolette doesn't play, but she's also fun. So they want to be in your vicinity around you. And so they kind of want to listen more than just a person who's outside looking in and just telling them what to do. So I've used my leadership in that I show them the way, I guide them very much, but I also show them the love. And it's the same Nicolette without the uniform, but you just have to do what you have to do.
Wow, that's really good. So, um, going back to when you told your bio, this is I just had to get the Pathfinder stuff out of there because
Mhm.
it's in my system, in my blood.
Mhm.
But what I really wanted to ask, and tying into your book, is you said that you noticed some problems that young people were having with education. Can you
Mhm.
um, elaborate? Let us know what those problems
Sure.
were, those issues were.
So I went to Paul Robeson High School, which is one of the least or the slowest or baddest, I don't know what to say, Paul Robeson was on a scale of ranking in schools. And luckily for me, when I was in there, I was in a program that was connected to Barnes and Noble's. I'm sorry. Barney, which is what was it? It was Wall Street. It was some kind of branch in Wall Street. I forget it now. It's been so many years ago. But with that program, I was able to get some, into business and technology and do a lot of great things, and also meet a lot of different people, a lot of young people my age, older folks who cared about youth and education. And I realized as I met these people, even though they were in the same grade level as I was, we didn't have the same knowledge. And as I struggled in the math and sciences in a school that was for math and science, they did not. And it bothered me. And it didn't truly get to me until one of my instructors and teachers had me go to a program called Bridge to Medicine, where, because my whole intention was to become a doctor. And it was a program where students all around the country were going, or I should say city, would go to City Tech and to help prep them for what was Sophie Davis, which is still currently Sophie Davis now. But then they would become doctors, and they wouldn't have to go through the whole process that many do. Anyway, long story short, we all took exams. We all were supposed to be ranked in the level of understanding education in the tiers that we would fit in, and that would they would then have to teach the classes. I was third in my class, and there was another student who was valedictorian in her school, and we ended in the third tier. And I just couldn't understand it because, as a student who was supposedly smart, my teachers would have me go to so many different programs. But then again, even in that program, I ranked the lowest and I just couldn't get it. And so I had to do some research, and I realized that all schools are not created equal. And depending on where the school is located, they get different resources. And my teachers would say that, okay, we don't have the books, we don't have this, we don't. It just didn't dawn on me until at that time when I realized we were all seniors in high school, but we were not all with the same amount of intellect, and it wasn't our fault.
Wow. So I'm guessing that this is pointing to that the system is rigged,
Exactly.
and that's what you are talking about. So, with that issue, one, can you really? You said that you noticed that you weren't as that all not all schools are created equal. But when you use the term rigged, that means there's intentionality in the system, meaning
Right.
when you use the term rigged, it's like when you have a football game, you want this team to lose and you make
Yes.
sure that they lose
Exactly.
so you can win the bet. So is it that intentional that there's
Yes.
certain schools that you are meant to fail? Can you
Yes.
speak on that?
Sure. And so in my research, I found that there's something called redlining. And what redlining is when the city was being built way back when, they partitioned the neighborhoods in such a way that the ghettos would be in one place and the affluent neighborhoods would be in one place. And they would then place the schools in that neighborhood where only that group of people would attend. So in my learning and what I've come to notice and realize is that the same locations that were redlined then are still the same way that they are now. So the same ghettos and the same affluent neighborhoods, the ghettos are not going to receive resources. They're not going to get the right businesses around them, and anything that would help them to leave that system or go out of that neighborhood and thrive and grow and become better. They're not going to get. Whereas in affluent neighborhoods, they're going to get all the schools, all the resources, the businesses, the money, the banks, everything that's catered to them will continue to be for them. So now the reason why I say it's rigged is that this is something that happened in the 1800s, and we are now in 2020. So like, if you have realized it, and it's been talked about, and people make dissertations, and they do statistics, and they do research, and they realize that it is a problem. See, to me, if you realize it's a problem, you fix it. But then
Yes.
if you realize it's a problem and you continue with the problem, it's because you like the result. And that's why I say it's rigged, because the result then, therefore, is what you're searching for. In the same way that you say a game is rigged, right? If it's a horse race or a football, whatever's happening there, everyone might know, or maybe people don't know, some people know. If those people are not seeking to fix the problem, they like the outcome, and they will continue to set it up so that the same outcome is produced each time so that they can continue to benefit from it. And that's why I say it's rigged. Everyone knows about it. The government knows about it. School system knows about it, but they're doing nothing to remediate it. Therefore, it is rigged, and it's going to continue to be so. And in my book, I teach people how to get by, how to get around it, because a lot of people are talking about, oh my gosh, it's not fair, and we should talk to them, and we should riot, and it. How long has it been happening? Nothing has been done. So it's really up to us to take a stand and take a step and do it our way.
So what I'm basically getting from what you just said is the people who made the system are liking the results, so they're continuing this system, even though it is clearly publicized. You wrote about it. Other professors have wrote about it. The school system knows about it. The government, you said, knows about it. Uh, People who read and study find out about it, and yet nothing is being done. And not to spoil the book because I want people to go out and read it, but what are some of the few tips that you do say to help those who are in this rig system, because it's difficult to get out of, and it's going to take a long time for it to change.
Right. So my stance is that it really depends on each individual person. And that doesn't, branch off from what most people talk about, right? It takes one person's act to change the world, right? And as small as you might think it is, it matters, right? So when each individual black person, brown person, colored person decides, you know what, I can do something, and I'm going to start with me, right? So I'm not going to feed into this whole idea that I'm not smart enough. I don't have the right resources. Like, if it's not given to me, then I can't get it, right? So what I teach in the book is ways that you can do for yourself. When you're not given, you find out how to get, right? You do not just sit there and say, that's my lot. That's what I've been offered, so I can't do any differently. No, you go out there and you find a way to make your own life different, right? So that's one of the key things. And what I also teach is education. Like, it's not that, okay, the school system is bad, so therefore education is no good. It's, how am I going to use what they give me in the educational system to better myself in ways that they didn't expect me to, because they were not, even since they didn't give me the right resources, they thought I was going to be stagnant and go nowhere. But I'm going to use the little that they give me and amplify it so that it can become, I can maximize it. right? So that's the second thing that I teach. And then I talk also about the brain and how we as human beings work. So no matter how much a person tries to oppress you, tries to degrade you, you will not be degraded or oppressed if you do not believe in that mentality. So it really depends on what you want to instill in yourself. What do you believe about you? As Black people, colored people, as a race, we are powerful. And once we realize how strong and how great we are, then the sky's the limit. Can no one tell you that you're stupid or you're slow or you're not going to amount to anything for you to believe, because you know it's a lie. So I empower people to realize who they are as individuals and what they can do, so that they do not internalize what their environment is trying to dish out to them.
This is very powerful and very interesting because I think I'm starting to see this as well. When I moved and saw how in different places this is very apparent and it's very clear. When I was living in Massachusetts, every town had resource, every city had resources. But then I moved and I visited another state, and I can see one city that is literally 2 minutes away from the other city,
Mhm.
two different cities, a tale of two different cities, and it's interesting. So what I think you are saying is that not only are you teaching people to go out and get, because the system is telling them, is continually telling them that they are nothing, that they are worthless. And so they want, the system basically wants them to feel that so
Right.
that they do not uplift themselves.
That's right.
And so what you're telling is that it's a lot about mindset, and
Yes.
the education system is meant to empower. A good
Mhm.
education system is meant to
Yes.
empower, to make you go out and continually educate yourself and not just say, okay, I'm gonna stay here and like you say, be stagnant and not change, not grow.
Right.
So that is that basically what
That is
you're.
exactly what I'm saying. I find that a lot of young people, they have so much within them that they have to offer. And it might not always be in the way society is looking for it. Because we're all different. We all have different methods of understanding, of learning, and then of proving what we know. But when your understanding and your methods do not coincide with what society is looking for, then they deem you as either slow, retarded, or dyslexic, or whatever negative thing they could put on you that explains, I don't get it, I don't understand, it's not like me, so it can't be good. So we have to prove that no, it is different, it's not bad, right? And so, yes, I might look different, I might act different, I might even talk differently from you, but that doesn't make me any worse than you are. And so, we use these tools, and I show students how to use their own innate, God given gifts, understanding, and the mechanisms of the brain and the methods that the brain used to register, apply, absorb information. Like I tell them, listen, your brain cannot help but learn in the same way that you can memorize a lyric, right, and spit it out, or you can create a rap and spit it. Oh, in that same way, you can scheme and do the wrong, all of that stuff. You can use that same power, that same innate gift to do the right thing, right? Or what society deems as correct or right, or and then you can empower yourself that way and then prove to others or show others the way as well, because not everyone knows how to tap into their inner strength. And so if you found that way, you can teach others. And that's what I found. It was not always there, I had to learn it, right? Sometimes others had to show me the way, like church pathfinders and master guide. There are times when I can't find it myself, I have to teach it, or I have to find someone to teach it to me. So, but once I learn it, it's not easy, but it's easier.
What you just said reminds me of that famous saying by Albert Einstein. I don't have it exactly memorized, but it's something along the lines of, if you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, it will think its entire life as an idiot. It will think it's an idiot. So,
Right.
but it's that's just not its skill set. It's,
That's
you
right.
have to find its skill set. And what I heard from you is basically what I love to hear, especially on this the youth ministry and mentorship, is finding what people are good at and saying,
Right.
look, that thing right there that you think nobody has, you can use that. Like you
Right.
just said, somebody who loves to listen to rap and they can memorize rap lyric, and you're like, wow, you can memorize.
Yes.
Or somebody who is, um, uh, there's somebody that I knew in my old church that was extremely hilarious, funny,
Hmm.
and I would just empower her and say, hey, you're funny, you can use that talent, that is a talent, that's, you can use that. So it's interesting how you're saying that this book, and even though the system is rigged, there is still the ability to not be in a cage. It's just because it's really a cage that has been created in your mind.
That's
So
right.
if you can open that cage in your mind, you can be free.
That's
Even
right.
though you weren't given as many resources,
Hmm.
you can have the energy to find those resources.
That's right.
And wow,
And
so
and it could free you. It can free you. I always say to people, the reason why you don't judge is I say a gunshot wound will kill someone, but a blister, a splinter, can also kill someone. The gunshot wound is faster, the splinter is slower, but they all will end in death. Because the gunshot wound, you bleed out, and the splinter might cause you to have sepsis. Using my nursing thoughts, but but they both are different ways of dying, but it's in the same way, right? If I have a skill, maybe it's singing, maybe it's writing. They're all different talents that will get me a certain means that I need to the end that I need. They might get there at different rates, different paths, but in the end, if I stick to them, if I keep using them, if I keep growing them, they both will get me to the place that I need. So both positively and negatively, we can see the same results. And your example reminds me of another example that I use actually at Oshkosh. We were talking to the youth, and I was trying to tell each person what I saw in them that was great. And there was one young man where everyone is just like, oh, him, what can you possibly find that's good in this boy? And I said, well, a lot of times he says things that are so off, that are so irritating. But you know what? He can elicit a response, and that is a gift, right? Because there are some people that it's just no matter what they say, it's like, it doesn't matter. But he has the tact and the know-how to choose the right words to get on everybody's nerves.
there you
So
go.
trust me, if he can also use his tact for finding the right words or pinpointing what he likes or dislikes in people by just observing what I can say and get a response, that's a gift. It's a skill. Because you can be anywhere and you can draw attention to you. I'm not that one. I like to be in the shadows. I don't like to come to people. I don't like people to notice me. But in a business, you might just need that individual who can draw attention, positive or negative, but draw attention. And that's a skill. But it's responsibility to use it positively. But you need to know what your skill is in order to find how to use it.
Mm. And I think this is another thing that I love about mentorship and tutoring and teaching and empowering young people is also letting them know that what the paths that you see to success are not necessarily your path. I think what
Right.
we get
Mm,
bogged down in is we saw how Bill Gates got successful. We saw
right.
how Mark Zuckerberg got successful.
Mhm,
So we tried to imitate them.
mhm.
And it's like you're too busy imitating instead of empowering what you're already good at and
Right.
knowing that
Creating.
yes, what you're good at, it could be completely different, and that's why you're failing, because you're not doing your own passion, you're not doing your own calling, you're not listening to what God is telling you to do. And to tell young people that there are many different paths. There's the
Mhm,
gunshot wound, there's the blister, there's there's the knife wound. I mean, there's all kinds of ways. There's a
mhm.
million ways to die. You die differently, but there's all different paths. So there's all these different paths to success. But at the end of the day, it's what God called you to follow. It's what you are empowered to do. It's what your talents are, and that's what mentors and teachers and
Right.
tutors, when they do that, they're
Mhm.
life changing and
Amen.
doing amazing things. So
Amen.
wow,
True.
I'm excited to read your book. I know. Have you written other books as well,
I
Sister Nicolette?
have. My very first book was a book of poetry. I actually have it here. It's entitled Becoming. So this was my first one. It's
Wow.
poetry.
Nice.
And then the second one was the how to beat a rigged school system. This one. So
Wow.
yeah,
Beautiful, beautiful.
thank you.
So it's amazing to have you talk about these things that you're expert on. Um, so let me ask this question.
Mhm.
You have been in nursing for quite some time. You teach nurses, you mentor nurses. What's one of the questions you get a lot asked about nursing and education in general? Like, what are they looking for advice on?
To be honest, the very and this is why I love it so much. I usually get students who are at their wits end, who's like about to give up, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know if this is for me." And what I love to say is, well, let's think about this. Let's sit down and let's look at what you've done thus far. And what I find is they haven't done even half of the things that they could do to improve themselves. And so I find that in everyone. Like we are so stuck at looking at the success that we don't watch the journey. And therefore we don't add to it or help ourselves in it. We don't work on the journey. So we don't do enough to get to success, but we're quick to say I'm not there and I can't get there and I'm never going to get there. So I tell my students all the time, listen, let's work on the journey. Let's do the things that you're supposed to do. How many hours have you put in? How many books have you read? How many classes have you attended? How many practices have you done, right? And so it's like I find the question I get asked so much is, will I ever make it? And I'm like,
Mm,
yes, you will. If it's God's will for you, there is nothing that could stand in your way. But remember, God says, I stand at the door knocking. He awaits for you to open. So there is something you must do. And even Christians, I get this from Christians too. And that's the sad thing because Christianity sometimes put us at a disadvantage. And that is we rely on God a little too much. And it sounds so strange for me to say that, but I say it because we don't study, but God has to make us pass a test. We don't pick up the book, but God has to get us into school. Like God can, and He will, depending. And I tell people my testimony all the time that I got my nurse practitionership without taking an exam, and it's like what that can happen. It has. So yes, you God can get you someplace without you doing anything. But is that your intention of not doing anything and then being presumptuous and saying, God, you must? I don't think that's the way. So that's the thing that I find so often where people, they don't even try or they don't put in their best. They don't make the biggest effort that they can, but they still expect to get the greatest result.
wow. It's so now that brings us to that theological debate of presumption versus
Faith.
faith. Yeah, presumption versus faith, where people are um, they think it's faith, but it's not faith. It is it's an off-brand uh, imitation that
Right.
is not effective. Where you know, a good example is when Satan tempts Jesus and says, "Oh, if you're the Son of God, then jump off this building, and angels will save you." And it's like, yeah, angels will save Jesus if he's in danger, but he's not supposed to put God into the fullest chest, as Jesus said. So
Right. Right.
it's knowing the difference of that.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what I have to go here, sister.
Oh.
You are a member of a Haitian church,
Mhm.
and education is something that we hear all the time. It's one. There's a saying that we always hear growing up in Haitian community. It's l'église, la caille, l'école, which is school, church,
And home.
and home, and that's it. You don't go anywhere else. So education, church, relationship with God, and staying at home with your parents and being there. That's the only places you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
So how can our Haitian brothers and sisters in the Haitian church continue to say education is important, because it is, but empower our young people to feel like they can be successful in school?
Right. So I'm a product of that, l'école, l'église, la caille, really. Like my parents were super strict and that's all I have known for a long time. But I feel like what It's a whole package, and it's a whole, like in nursing they teach you about holistic practices. So knowing that the mind, body, soul, all of that are important, right? So I think the way to do it is through example, really. Like it's great to see our leaders who are progressing, who are going to school, who are doing the right thing, right? So when I find, like, the pastor is going getting another degree, or the elder is doing this, and whatever. And then, so when I was in education, because I was education director for a while, what I did was, we did our graduation, and I know every church does that, but to see that it's not only young people, it's not only the children who are graduating, but there are adults who are standing here too, who are getting degrees, who maybe didn't get a associate, didn't get a bachelor's, didn't get that, whatever, but they are going for it now. So the best way to show this example, or to help children understand this, is by living it yourself, right? But also giving them the avenues to do it, like school, churches having after school tutoring, or help, Wednesday night, I don't know, whatever, which is something that I don't find that we as Adventists do enough. We leave the teaching for, or the after school scholastical things for the outside world, and we have our own schools, obviously, so we can use our own teachers, and tutor and do that kind of thing too. So I think the examples that we show, and how we promote education is really important.
All right. So this is wonderful because this is something I think that we are experiencing a lot because when I talk to young people, they always mention how um, we care about our education, but we don't feel like we're getting support and things like
Right.
that. Like we get the lip service. In other
Mhm.
words, we get told education is important, but are we being helped in our
Right.
education?
And
So
then the other thing, not to cut you, is that once they do become educated, they're not used as much in this church because they're too young. And so that's another way that I think the church can improve on. So, like, okay, who's in the treasury? Like, is it a younger person who's finished in their finance, or who's doing business, who's there with the elder who's been there for 50, 20 years, 15 years, whatever, who can learn and then take the job from them? Who's doing who have they put in the building, or is it someone who's in construction, who is an engineer, who can now bring new knowledge? For example, look at what's happened with us, even in my church. And I'm not one to bash, but I'm very real and transparent, and it's that when we were saying, let's do live, let's do visual, let's do online, and they're like, no, because then people are going to want to stay home and they're not going to want to come to church. Well, look what happened. COVID happened, and all of a sudden now you have to learn today. Whereas if you had listened to the youth who are telling you, listen, it's a progression, it's a movement, everything's technology, let's use what we know. I know what you know, and I appreciate it. But we went to school, you agreed with it, we have knowledge, let's apply it. And let's not wait for a devastated time like pandemic COVID to prove that to you.
oh man, I'm getting excited hearing this because this is something I've been saying for a long, long time. And if you didn't, because not only did you have to learn, now the people that you were ignoring now are the most influential people and the
Right,
people that know how to use it. You have to go
right,
to them now. You
right,
were
right.
ignoring them, but they know how to use Zoom. They
Mhm.
know how to use social media. They know how to use all these things. I remember a certain church that the treasurer thought, it, online giving is just it's just too complicated and a waste of
Mhm.
time. And then COVID-19, and they have no choice. You have
Right,
no choice.
right.
And if you had done it years ago, you would
Mhm.
have been experts at it by now,
Exactly.
and you wouldn't have to worry about COVID-19. You would have had the system in place, but now you're scrambling
Exactly.
and you're behind people who empowered their young people and
That's right.
listen
And
to
and
their
you're
young.
being critiqued and criticized too. You look bad. And it's like, oh my gosh, this big church or this church has been around this so long. Why are they so behind? It doesn't behoove anyone for you to not go with the time, not to support your youth, and God speaks about it. And yet, I think it's the human nature that they don't want to let go, which is sad. And I think too, we as youth, we can take a little blame from it too, in that as educated as we are, sometimes we forget that they're the ones who supported us and they're the ones who guided us. And sometimes we throw it back in their face about how much they do not know. And we laugh at, their accents or their queer, weird ways. And so it makes them a little more reluctant to want to give it up to us. So I think the blame is both ways, even though they should be wiser because they're older. But we should take a little bit of the blame as well.
Man, as long as we can start that conversation, that
Mhm.
two-way conversation,
Yes.
bridging that gap, and
Yes.
hopefully, this is one of the reasons why I started this podcast
Mhm.
to actually start having those conversations and bridge that gap. So, Sister Nicolette, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. But before I go into our closing segment that I usually do,
Mhm.
you are a fellow content creator. I mean, not only do you make written this awesome book, but
Mhm.
you do some things online. What do you do on your social media?
Well, uh, I just vlog, really. I talk about my day, I pray, I sing. For a time, when COVID first started, I prayed for 3 times a day, for nurses and healthcare workers, for the three different shifts. So that's 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7. So I did that every day, 3 times a day. I might miss a day or two, I mean, a shift, but every day I did it. So I did that. But I like to share God with people. I get super excited about God and what He's done for me and how He's worked in my life and how I see Him work with others. So I love that. I do Bible study sometimes. I'm always doing Sabbath school lesson. So I do a lot. I'm a really personable individual, but it, on the air, people don't need to know that. So you could be free, and it's great. So social media has been my outlet for many reasons, so my content with my educational side, my medical side, and my creative side. So it's been a great thing.
So where can they find you if they
uh,
want to
s-
find you?
so if they type in my name, they could find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. I'm on it all. But
All
mostly
right.
Facebook, because I'm not that techy. So Facebook is just easier for me. It's been around longer for me.
All right. So they just have to type in your name and they
Mhm.
can find you on Facebook. So check her out and what she does. Um, and just reminding everybody, you can find myself on Instagram at youth_mentor 101, youth_mentor 101. Feel free to reach out and we'd love to have that conversation with you. But as I usually do on this podcast is I give it to the guest to give some words of encouragement. So today, there is a student out there who is in the rig system and feels like, man, I'm going to become just a worker making minimum wage the rest of my life. I'm not even going to have the grades good enough to even get into a good enough college to have a degree. What words of encouragement would you have for them today?
Sure. So my words of encouragement is realize that God created your brain to learn. It cannot help but learn. So once you realize that anything that you read and see and hear, you have the potential of learning, then you can innately become that student that you've always wanted to become. And of course, yes, you have to practice, you have to read, and you have to do your homework, but know that it's not impossible for you to learn the difficult things that you are going to see, right? Because that's what your brain is there for. It absorbs, it files, and then it regurgitates what you put in. So keep reading, keep listening, keep attending class, and eventually, just by sheer force of repetition, you will learn. And that's a great thing because, again, there's not much effort that you must put in just to sit in a class, to read a book or to listen. Obviously, yes, the more intent with the more diligence, the better and the more easily you will learn the information. But know that your brain was created to learn.